So first off, we are going to be installing this 𝗣𝗶𝗱 26mm carburetor. Biggest reason, this carb had a really weird jet extender that looked really hard. I couldn't find one for it, so I was only able to adjust the main jet, not the idle jet, and it runs extremely lean on the idle side. So when you start this bike in the morning, it's kind of coughing back a little bit in the carb and running really lean, stalling out a lot. Takes a long time to warm up, and it has erratic idle that's all over the place. Sometimes idle low, sometimes idle in high. It just doesn't run good with this carb. Another problem is the idle mixture screw is basically impossible to get to, right between the head and up on the bottom of the carb. Not good. So we got this 𝗣𝗶𝗱 26mm, big idle adjustment screw, nice, easy to access idle mixture screw, polished intake, came with a bunch of jets. We'll go over all the jet sizes. Should be everything we need for this thing. I'll put a link below to Amazon for this carb. Intake on this carb here is a bigger intake than the stock carb, so we can't use the stock foam air filter, so we got a 𝗣𝗶𝗱 air filter corresponding to that. All these parts will be available down below. All right, let's jump into here, do a little time lapse, pull all this stuff off, and start installing this carb. One thing to mention, in a previous video, this is a little upgrade. Doesn't seem like much, but it's well worth it. I got rid of the cheap plastic fuel filter that came with the bike and the cheap black fuel line that has a tendency to split. And having a split line dripping fuel onto a hot engine is never good. So I picked up a nicer filter from a motorcycle shop, and I got some urethane line on here. It's transparent too, so you can tell if you got fuel in it or not. It's a simple kind of a reassurance upgrade, so you're not going to be dripping gas all over your engine. There we go. Pretty simple to pull that thing out. We'll measure the throats on both these carbs and see if they actually, how they measure this one. Okay, stock carb, measure the slider. Slider is 21.47, so 21.5. This narrow spot is 20.73, a little taller this way. 25.1. Intake side, 37.9, so 38 for an air filter, 38mm. 𝗣𝗶𝗱, 48.5mm. As far as I can get this down here, measures out to 27.6. Does taper a hair further in there, I can't get to, but 27.79. This overall looks like a bigger carb. Even the slider is massive compared to the stock carb. 29.35 mil. So overall this carb is spec'd out much better. There's looking down the slider. Here's looking at the intake. This one is massive and all polished. Here's looking at the motor side, way bigger on this one. And here's the biggest thing. Right down here, idle mixture screw is. Well, it had a tiny little intake manifold that's curved like this. The head's right here, you can't get to it. This one, it's right here on the side, way better setup. Oh, and this one had tamper-proof screws originally, and I had to cut off and put Phillips on here. And once I got in there, one of the idle jets had this weird jet extender. I couldn't find anything like that. So this one has 2 Allens to take off the float. Well, we're gonna pull this off, see what stock jets are in here. I'm about 800, 900 feet up, but I ride from sea level up to like 3,500 feet, somewhere in that range. So I think we'll get something in here and tune this up and see what we get. So like I said, the 𝗣𝗶𝗱 carb comes with a little handful of jets and some jets in it, and these will get you pretty much in the ballpark for what you need. They're nice little jet sizes. So coming right out of the carb, it's got a 40 in here for the idle jet, and it comes with a 35. We'll keep the 40 in here. It's got a 115. I think we're going to drop it down to a 110. I may have upgraded the stock carb to maybe 100 or 105. I can't quite remember. It comes with 110, 115, think 112 and 118, I believe. So it gives you a really nice kind of split sizes there. So we're gonna drop a 110 in here. There's another fella that got one of these bikes after I made a video on it, and he even gave me a shout out to it, his experience on one of these little bit bikes, the Storm. He put one of these on, and went over jets really well. I think he said he was 400 feet, and I think his channel is 𝗣𝗶𝗱. I think that's what it is. So I'll put a little link to his video. It was pretty helpful and thorough. He even went through the forks on these bikes and put a little bit lighter fluid and started dialing them in. So another helpful channel that you could support by checking his workout. A lot of really detailed information. All right, I'm gonna drop this 110 main in here and then install this thing. One thing I'm gonna do is this little plastic insert here with the O-ring on it is not port matched very well for the intake here, so I'm going to go around it and clean up maybe 1 millimeter on every side here, and that should be matched out, because right now air is going to be flowing up here and it's going to hit an edge. I already port matched this once a little bit for the stock carb to smooth it out, but I'm going to take a die grinder and clean this out a little more, just so it's not like a hard lip in there for this better flowing carb. So this is kind of beveled out a little bit to match this carb a lot better. Kind of just a smooth transition. Honestly, what would probably help this thing too is if I pulled off this intake and ported it out quite a bit as well, but I don't really feel like it. We're just gonna put it on here. I kind of port matched this a little bit originally, just took a little burr off of it, but that's about it. All right, let's get installing this carb now. This is the crankcase breather. I'll probably keep this little inline filter on here. I've never seen one on any Japanese bike, but I'm just gonna route this down and vent like every other dirt bike down back here below the motor, and it should be just fine. Got the air filter here. Oh, forgot I ordered an extra set of jets in case I needed them. Put that in there a while back. So here's the air filter. That air filter kit does not come with those jets. That's something I put in there. It's got a pre-filter on it too. Don't just put them on there. Make sure to oil your air filter. This is some Maxima racing oil. It doesn't really matter. It's just spray on air filter oil. We're gonna put this on here. There'll be links below to this if you need some. Idea with the oil is it captures all the bigger chunks of dust and stuff and keeps it from getting through your air filter, and the smaller stuff too. Give it a nice coat of that. This air filter oil also comes with another can of air filter cleaner. It kind of like cuts down the oil and it cleans it out pretty well. Definitely recommend it. So here's the stock carb. One thing to note, when you're putting in the slider, your cable goes in through a hole in here, hooks into there. This side has a little bit of a ramp to it. That is for your idle screw to hit. This side with the slot all the way down, it fits with the slot that's basically in the throat of the carb right down here. Do not install that any other way. Make sure when you slide it in, you see how it can rotate? That's no good. You want to get it until it's in that slot. Now I cannot rotate it. Okay, if that slider is put anywhere else and it drops actually in there, or it won't drop in all the way, you'll have a stuck wide open throttle. So make sure you get that slider aligned with that slot and that groove in this side so it cannot rotate. It's the only way to install that. If not, you're gonna have a wide open bike. It's no fun. One thing you want to pay attention to is every time you take hardware out of the bike, always put a little blue Loctite on them. These little Chinese bikes seem to rattle quite a bit. It's nice not to be losing hardware on the trail. I've mentioned this almost any one of my videos, so a little blue Loctite goes a long ways to keep the hardware in this thing. Now the choke isn't as convenient. The other one had a little lever here. This one's more of a plunger enrichment valve. But the benefit of this choke is you're not clogging up the throat with the butterfly for the choke, because the other one actually closed off the inlet to choke the air. This one is an enrichment valve like more modern motorcycles. A little hard to get to the plunger, but doable. This is how the choke worked on the other one. Simple lever, but as you see, this is inside the throat always. That's how the choke works on this one. Alright, choke's on. I haven't started this thing in about a month, so we'll see how it does. I'm going to take off the stand, tilt it over, make sure there's some gas getting in the carb. Well, does not sound. Slider's dropping all the way. Because it's a different carb and different slider, I think I'm going to bring this in. I think I backed the idle adjustment screw all the way back on the carb, and I think the cable itself is just pulling the slider up. There we go. I can hear a nice click on there. This should idle, or maybe not even idle at this point. We'll start it up again. I think that's going to be the ticket. Yeah, there was no slop in the cable here at all. I don't like a lot, but you can hear the click of the carb now. So that's probably why I was running high. Now we've got to reset the idle adjustment on here. Okay, I gotta crank this knob. I cranked it down thinking that was it first. That's actually with the choke off, which is nice. It starts up like that. It means it's already got a richer idle circuit going on here than the stock car. That big knob is pretty nice for adjustment. Plus, I can actually access the idle mixture screw when it warms up and can dial that in. A little boggy on the bottom end still. Still don't think I got the idle circuit quite right. It's probably a little rich because it started, and once I got it running almost instantly I could turn off the choke. It ran okay, but it's a little hard to tune down low. It doesn't seem like you can get rid of the bog off the snap as I would like it a little more snappy. And it was just idling here for about a minute and then stalled, and that seems to be, idle's really good and then it starts dropping off and stalling. So I think I'm gonna probably pull off the carb and play around with the idle jet a little bit. This might be a nice one to split between the 40 and 35. So I got 38. I think I'm gonna probably pop this in a little bit later. It's starting to rain. Try it out, see if I can get that idle mixture screw to be a little more responsive and not so boggy when you crack the throttle. I want this thing to run crisp. So I don't know if this is going to be a big enough step down, but I'm going from a 40 to a 38. I'm going to slide this in and put this carb back on, take it for a quick little test drive, and see if we're getting a little bit more top speed than the last video. So with the 40 idle jet, pilot jet, my air mixture screw was out 3.5 turns. That's not really ideal. You want between 2.5, ideally, kinda, rule of thumb. So I put a 38 in here and I got it out 2.5 turns. We're gonna start it up, test drive it, warm up the bike, and see if we can dial it in and get a nice crisp throttle response and good idle. So just turn the gas on, we'll see if it needs a choke or not, cool down. So I'd have to say, right now, even with that 38 in there, not as crisp when you pop a throttle, but it pulls pretty good, and it revs from idle all the way up to higher RPMs. Really smooth, steady pull, no bog out in the top. Idle seems to be pretty consistent. And put it in neutral. Before, the idle was all over the place with the stock car. There's that little pop, a little bog if you give it too much, too quick, but I don't like that. Forgot to mention, this is another upgrade I did. I don't like the size, they're a little bit bigger, but hey, you know what? They fold in. The stock mirrors were a little more streamlined, but they didn't fold in, so this is kind of a nice setup. I put these on here a little while back. They were 20 something on Amazon. They seem pretty sturdy when it comes to mirrors. A little bit big Mickey Mouse mirrors, but I'd like to be able to see what's behind me when I am riding on the road, and the fact that they fold in when you're not on the road, trail riding, they tuck in pretty well. So I think that was an upgrade. I took the mirrors that came off of here and put them on my Grom because they're better than the mirrors that came with the Grom originally. So, all right, before the rain comes, we're gonna take this thing on a little speed test, see how it does on the highway, and compare it to the last video I did with rejetting the stock carb. So I was still dealing with a little bit of bog on this bike. It was, as soon as you crack the throttle, it would bog out. But if you rolled on mellow, it'd rev right up, no problem. And I got it idling pretty good with that 38. It might be a hair fat, but the only thing I got down to was 35, and that's going back to stock. Don't want to go back to stock pilot jet. So I'm going to play with the needle setting. I'm going to check what clip it is on, and I'm going to raise the needle 1 or 2 clicks. I think it's in the middle setting. Okay, so it's on the middle setting. So I think I'm gonna drop it down, I would say from the top 1, 2, 3, 4 down from the top. And we're gonna see if that helps the bog a little bit. All right, time to put it back on there. pretty happy with that carb. Like I said earlier, it's way bigger throat size, and that might be something we're dealing with, a little bit of a less crisp off the bottom end on the throttle response, but it's much better dropping that clip on the needle, so down 4 positions, so it's 1 up from the very bottom. I may even jump in there another day when it's warmer out and put it to the very bottom setting on the needle clip to raise the needle up. But all in all, I'm pretty happy. It feels like 110 with the stock muffler, 110 main, and I'm running a 38 idle. I think it's a bit fat for the idle circuit. If I could find maybe a 37 or 36 might be good. 35, keep in mind, with stock, because I'm 2.5 turns out on the idle mixture screw. But all in all, it starts, check this out. Starts up, bike's warm. Oh, choke works great. You pull up the choke, starts, runs really well with the choke on. The other bike was just hard to keep going until it's warmed up. So I've already warmed up the bike, but got to pull on the front brake to make this one start. Check it out, no throttle. Just runs pretty darn good. Much crisper after changing that idle, that needle on there. But you can still bog it out if you really give it a quick throttle. See that? So all in all, the bike idles fantastic now. The bike starts up when it's cold, maintains a good high idle. The other carb was just jetted way too lean, especially on the idle mixture or on the idle side. Would I go for this exact carb again down the road? Probably, because the bike revs out really well. It feels pretty good. But being much larger throat size, even though the other one said a 27, this is supposed to be a 26, this is clearly a bigger carb. Maybe I consider, if this is a 𝗍𝐵 26, maybe I consider a 𝗍𝐵 24. I still think it's going to be at least the size of the stock carb, maybe a little bigger. I think it would really help on that low end throttle response. I think the Venturi on this thing is just a little too big for this CC size. But I'm going to play around with that needle a little bit more, maybe fine tune the jetting a little bit more. But I'm running 110 main, 38 idle, 2.5 turns out, idle mixture screw, oiled air filter, add some restriction, needle clip, four clip positions down, and that's about 800 feet up right here. So that's that. If that helps you at all, right on. Links below to some of these parts. And I have some pretty cool, exciting news. I have a really awesome bike I'm picking up tomorrow. It's going to be a slightly big brother to this, but it's going to be about the same size. It's really cool. So if you're not subscribed yet, subscribe. I think you're going to be interested in this one. I am. All right, until next time. Take care. Bye.